Hello and welcome to Turkey Talks. Today we are going to talk about the upcoming elections in Turkey. It was a very busy weekend. The opposition parties, which is known as Table of Six, finally decided to nominate the main opposition party leader Kemal Kilicdaroglu as their candidate for the presidency. As always, I'm joined by Kadir Üstün from Washington. Kadir, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Bora?
I'm sure you were watching and following the developments in Turkey this weekend. It was very active, and the level of excitement was very high, especially in the opposition side. One of the main party leaders left the table, then she came back. I'm talking about the E party, the good party as it is called. So what is your first impressions about this process? What it did tell us?
Bora, you're in Turkey. You were there. I'm sure you have a different perspective. I was outside following it from DC, especially since last Thursday up until even today. Actually, there have been more developments. We've been glued to Turkish TVs following every development because it was all about the earthquake, how to rebuild, what to do about new building structures and where to build, and the government was announcing various packages, financial packages to help support the businesses, the individuals. So the entire discussion in Turkey for the past several weeks has been about earthquake, but since there was another political earthquake on Thursday, and the entire debate just changed to that, and past 4 days, 5 days, things have been focused on that. Maybe we can explain what happened, Bora. Basically, like you said, Kılıçdaroğlu emerged as the candidate of the opposition to run against President Erdogan, but that process has been rife with many difficulties and challenges. This table of six, so-called table of six, has been meeting for about 14 months. I think they've met about 16 times at least. And there, of course, they had different committees on different issues that met. They created draft papers on what they're offering to the society, what they're planning to do when and if they emerge victorious at the elections. But of course, entire country kept asking them, who is your candidate? Who is your candidate, right? There was a big pressure, and then it was interrupted with the earthquake. And then last Thursday, they met, and that was their first official meeting to discuss the presidential candidate. But there was a major earthquake, let's say, in the opposition. The leader of the E party, Meral Akşener, appeared to be walking away from the table. She aired multiple grievances. She spoke in very harsh terms on Saturday. She accused the rest of the table for prioritizing sort of individual career plans and stuff like that. It was very harsh language, but there was a flurry of political activity, meetings, back and forth within the opposition between different parties, different leaders over the weekend after that. And then finally, on Monday, they reached an agreement to install the leader of the CHP as their presidential candidate. But I don't think, that's settled, at least on the surface. But there's a lot of things, problems, and details to be figured out. And just today, I believe the HDP leader tweeted out some critical things about what E-Party leader Akşener said at a TV interview yesterday. So, I mean, there's been a lot, but what it is looking to me like, the table of six has been able to sort of emerge out of this crisis in one piece, but they've probably been damaged in terms of the perception, public perception, because people are asking questions like, can they actually govern in the way that they are proposing? They're essentially proposing going back to a coalition government among these parties, and they're proposing that Turkey returns back to the parliamentary system. So we'll see what kind of a campaign performance they're going to show in the weeks and months ahead. Of course, the President Erdogan, the governing coalition, governing party, I should say, with its partner that's not in the government, MHP, what kind of strategy are they going to follow in response to this? So there's a lot of matters to discuss, but you and I discussed this prior to the show that, we should talk about. This is very important because there is a seemingly broad coalition against President Erdogan, and how are they going to mobilize, and are they going to be effective in convincing people that they can run the country better?
Well, from the positive side of all what has happened in Turkish politics, I think the good thing about this competition, now we are talking only about politics, politicians, and how they try to merge alliances. Because I am old enough to remember when there was an presidential elections in Turkey. Everybody looked to the military, if this candidate will be approved, or that kind of. Also, the competition was in the parliament, so people were watching from outside. Now it's all about politics. I think this is very positive. Since 2014, Turkish presidents are being elected by direct popular vote. I think this is one of the achievements of President Erdogan in the past 2 decades of his rule. Now, as you have said, we are looking at the opposition, how they come together. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the composition of this table of six, because our foreign maybe viewers would like to know about it. The 6 parties, actually 4 of them are right-wing parties. 2 of them are being led by former AK Party, AKP, Justice and Development Party ministers. So we should keep this in mind.
Prime Minister as well.
Yes, and foreign minister, Babacan was foreign minister, and he did other finance minister in the past. The other one, Saadet Party, the Happiness Party, it's also actually it was born from the main Turkey's conservative party, which was led by Necmettin Erbakan in the past. So they claim they are following his path. The other one is E-Party, the Good Party. It's also most of the members are coming from MHP, Nationalist Movement Party. So actually, when you look at the composition of the table of six, apart from main opposition, the Republican People's Party, CHP, the biggest, the other partners are right wing. So from the beginning, there are problems. You expect issues, major differences on the main issues. I mean, starting from, the nature of the parties are so contradictory. So this is one thing maybe we should talk about. So when as you have said, they have been meeting for the last 14 months, and they always talk about, the president, the name of the president, the personality is not important. So we are negotiating on the principles. So if we can provide principles of how to rule, it will be easier for us to, name a candidate. But last week, as we have seen, name of the candidate was so important. So this is one thing I think we should mention, the political differences of the table of six. And I think there is another problem which actually shocked me when I saw what was happening when the leader of the E party left the table. Her speech, her proposals of nominating one of the two mayors, Istanbul and Ankara mayors, who are members of another party. So, institution-wise, if you do this in your company, something like that, if you try to say something on another organization's structure, so it's actually an insult. I think this was a major issue, and I think it will remain a bad taste in this alliance, if we call it.
You're right. Bora, maybe I can just comment on the last thing you said first. So the Meral Akşener, the leader of E Party, she called on mayors of Istanbul and Ankara to come forward, and she said that there was a historical calling on their names because she thought they would be better candidates than Kılıçdaroğlu himself. But like you said, these are mayors, or their party is CHP. Although they were elected to mayorships as part of a coalition between E Party and CHP. So in some ways, actually, the mayor of Istanbul keeps repeating that, saying that, as the mayor of, the alliance, nation alliance, right? So originally there was a two-party alliance between CHP, Kılıçdaroğlu's party, and then E Party, Akşener's party. So those two parties, when they realized about more than a year ago that, it wasn't going to be enough against President Erdogan, they decided to enlarge that quote-unquote table, and then they invited some unlikely, parties, like you said, either center-right or, conservative, even Islamist leanings parties. So other than CHP, none of those parties has any kind of left-leaning credentials. But the opposition is trying to present this as a success story in terms of Kılıçdaroğlu being able to bring all these parties together around a common goal. But there's been an electability question regarding Kilicdaroglu. Like you said, the table of six for months, they said, we want to agree on an agenda. We want to agree on a political platform that will succeed. And then, picking the candidate who is going to run against President Erdogan, that was a minor issue, relatively speaking. And, because they're imagining the president as a transitional figure in any case, to bring the country from the presidential system to the parliamentary system. But, for that to happen, the opposition needs to garner a lot of support and have enough members of parliament to go for bring this constitutional change to the agenda, to the people's votes. And then, people have to decide if they're going to go for that parliamentary system proposal. So, but, agreeing on the principles and political platform was, let's say, relatively easy, because they said openly that they weren't going to focus on differences. They were going to focus on common points. But they consistently excluded HDP, the Kurdish leaning party, PKK's basically political arm in the eyes of many people, most people, I should say, in Turkey. So HDP's exclusion was sort of hard, was a demand by Meral Akşener, the second largest party in this alliance, in this table of six. And now they still need their support if they want to have a chance of, winning in the first round in May 14th. What can they offer them, right? What can they offer HDP for them to support this table of six, whereas they've been excluded from discussions from this table of six for about 14 months? So these are still strong questions that are out there that the opposition will need to figure out. They have a proposal saying that we are going to turn Turkey back into a parliamentary system. We are going to rule as a coalition. We are going to have a president with, by my count, 7 deputies. Each party leader will become a deputy, and then these mayors, upon the insistence of Akşener, are also going to be his deputies. And there was a big crisis over who was going to be the candidate. And in the eyes of many people in Turkey, I think, this is rife. This is a recipe for continuous sort of political upheaval. The parties, how are they going to come to agreement on every major issue along the way? And basically, that's the challenge for the opposition, to convince people that they can actually make, create a coherent agenda. So I guess, and then of course, for the next 2 months, what kind of political strategy will President Erdogan going to will follow? Because he's been super focused on the earthquake, reconstruction. They've already started actually building buildings. The number one issue in Turkey right now is how to recover from the earthquake. And you're going to have two sides. One side will say, we are already doing that, and we are laser focused. We are spending all these resources on rebuilding. And then the opposition will say, in one way or another, that they can do it better, right? But how is the people going to respond to that? We're gonna have to see that.
Yeah. I mean, as you explained very well, I think what has happened within the opposition coalition, let's say, with the table of six, I think last week prepared enough ammunition to the president, because while he tried to install this presidential system to Turkey was the coalitions, in even 70s, 80s, 90s, Turkey suffered a lot because of the coalitions. And one of the reasons why he pushed for the presidential system was this. I mean, the problems of the decision-making process. Now, I mean, we have this presidential system, plus we have one-party government since 2002. So many people, especially the new generation, they don't know about it. Who are in their 30s, probably they don't remember. They don't know what how Turkey looked like in 90s because of these coalition problems. This crisis in determining the candidate, I think it was like a trailer of what can happen in the future. So I think when President Erdogan starts his campaigning, if he does it, I don't know, probably he will be focusing on this week. So there is enough ammunition for the president which he can use in the election campaign. But as you have said, he's focused on the quake area. This quake, which I mean, affected 11 cities. It was a huge, as many scientists also admit, it is one of the worst disasters of our time. So this, in the first days of the quake, everybody thought that now it's over, because of the difficulties to rise from the rubbles. But I think now it is turning to President Erdogan's strength, because there is a big challenge to rebuild homes for millions of people. More than 230,000 buildings collapsed. Millions of people need shelter, and there is this great challenge. So who is gonna build homes? So this is the main question, because people need these homes. Obviously, they need to recover. They need to rebuild their businesses. So it's a great challenge, and I think this presidential system and President Erdogan's quick decision-making ability can work for him in the election campaign, because he's committed to do that. And many people, when they look at the situation, I'm watching a lot of videos from the quake zone on social media. People are doing their own lives. So many people, I think, believe that Erdogan can deliver these homes. So I think this quake is a big challenge, but it will be a big one of the main questions, subjects of the election campaigns. And when we look at the situation, I think without using it as a campaign subject, Erdogan will focus on that, and he will try to garner votes from the belief, because we had earthquakes in 10 years ago in Elazığ, in Izmir. So he was able to deliver what he promised. So I think this is one of the strengths of him.
It's true, Bora. I mean, I don't think many people question whether these, these rebuilding efforts can succeed. Of course, it's a huge challenge. It's gonna take a long time. to recover fully, because businesses have been destroyed. Even if you build the buildings and put people back in their homes, you're going to have to create business. You're going to have to create incentives for people to go back to that region when, many will have already started figuring out how to live in other cities inside Turkey. That's why I think President Erdogan wants to complete this process within a year. It's a very ambitious project because if it lingers, right, if it takes multiple years, these people who have left the region won't be able to go back because they will already have started setting up lives. We've seen that in the refugee issue. This is an experience Turkey has had, and some of them will probably not go back. The sooner you can rebuild, the sooner people can go back to that region. And government has already, announced many incentives like, credits, low credit, no payments for a year or two, something like that, for women, for different kinds of businesses. So I think that's going to be important. And in the campaign, you're not going to be able to escape the debate about earthquake and how to overcome it. But you raised that interesting question about generational thing, right? The younger generations in Turkey they don't necessarily remember the coalitions. They didn't live through them, and they don't see it necessarily as a problem. They see it. They're saying whatever they're not happy about, they think that the opposition will give them a better time. Of course, in the 90s, it wasn't just a problem of coalitions, but it was also, like what you mentioned at the beginning, the military, what we call deep state, their influence and oversight on the system, right, made the governments weaker in general. And you rarely had I don't think there was a one-party government in the 90s. So coalitions, theoretically, it could be good because things get negotiated and you have broader involvement in the decisions of the country. But at the same time, from a negative perspective, you have political crises. You have crises that take too long to repair, and sometimes irreversible damage is done along the way. So that's going to be a choice for the Turkish voters. But the other thing is, interestingly, although the younger people probably support the government the least among other demographic groups, but then they also say Kılıçdaroğlu is possibly one of the worst candidates, if not the worst candidate. I'm saying this based on, past campaigns that have taken place on social media, on comedy shows, on, all sorts of debates and discussions. Kılıçdaroğlu tried to connect with the younger generations, promising freedoms, freedom of expression, etc. But I'm not sure if it's easy to connect with that generation, to be honest. Just the age difference, I guess, and the kinds of things that these political leaders have gone through. So on the one hand, the younger generation might not care so much about coalition, but they also didn't necessarily want Kılıçdaroğlu. They preferred these mayors, and Akşener's point was that these mayors are more popular, they're more electable, they have a better chance against President Erdogan. That was her argument. So we'll see how it goes now. According to Akşener's perspective, these mayors will be right there campaigning alongside Kılıçdaroğlu. We'll see how effective that's going to be. And to be honest, in political science, the current problems, the current grievances don't necessarily translate into change of governments unless there is a formidable alternative. And we'll see if the Turkish voters look at this picture and see the opposition as a formidable, viable alternative for all the things we just discussed, Borat. It's hard to say they're there yet, to be honest. So we'll see how it goes. But this past weekend will give a lot of ammunition to President Erdogan, like you said. He's been saying all along that you can't trust them to run the country. They can't even agree on a common candidate. They can't agree on so many things. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, in political science or in politics, things are so different. It's not like mathematics. So when you add the votes of parties to one another, it doesn't give you the exact result in many cases.
exactly.
So a lot of things may change. One of the former presidents of Turkey, Süleyman Demirel, once said 24 hours is too long in politics. So we have more than 2 months. And you know what we have seen this weekend was another proof of that. Table of six was over, then they came together. But I am sure everybody would agree that it left a bitter taste in the mouths of everyone. So we'll see, and we will be talking about that in the coming weeks. Thank you very much for this show, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you, Bora.